This is Call of Duty Black Ops 6. We're diving in and talking about the campaign specifically, and we're here on the Xbox Series X for context. Be sure to like the video. Subscribing is great as well. So we're coming off of a previous year of Call of Duty where the campaign was abysmal. It was terrible. It was short. It was awful. Modern Warfare 3.2's campaign was really bad. And this campaign had a lot, I guess, longer to be sort of worked on in terms of development, or at least it was supposed to have been. And this one does seem to carry forward some of the gameplay concepts that were present with the previous entry, and also doing some of the more signature Black Ops elements of play. I should also mention we're on the 4K 60 FPS mode for the Series X, but we're largely talking about the campaign, and a regular review of the overall package will be coming in the near future. So this campaign was sort of all over the place. At times I was okay with it, at times I hated it, sometimes it was just kind of not great. It ranged from weirdly mundane to sometimes having traditional Call of Duty levels to having more of the Warzone style of play that has basically infected every inch of Call of Duty. You can't escape Warzone. Warzone is literally everywhere. So you have some of these stupid missions that are like large open areas where you have to do multi-objectives, and they're just kind of weird and sort of pointless. Like there's like side mission things you can do, and in general you're kind of gathering cash while you're playing too, and you can use the cash to kind of upgrade your home because you get to play house occasionally, and that's where you learn more about your squad of characters. But your squad of characters sort of isn't the most important part of what's going on, because there is sort of like this other character that's even more kind of important, and it's there's a lot of questions I had. Like, this kind of connects to the previous like Black Ops games and tries to kind of further combine everything so that it all fits together. But as I said, it is really, really genuinely just insanely bizarre. The story setup and the characters, and you're supposed to care about this one character a lot, and like I didn't really get that, and then like the whole end of the game is just about this one character and you're like, huh? And it's bizarre. And then you yourself play, I'm assuming what they wanted to do was just kind of copy and paste Mason in here, but they couldn't. So instead they kind of created this really vanilla, generic, tested upon individual that feels basically like a Mason stand-in that doesn't really say anything, and that's kind of who you are in this game, the silent kind of there type. But then other levels you're switching through this quirky cast of characters that reminds me of Vanguard. You know, Woods is part of the team, and that's kind of cool, I guess. And it sort of continues like Adler, and you know, it kind of continues the Black Ops story, and it just introduces more characters into the mix. And yeah, I think your mileage is going to vary on how much you care about the characters, but you do get to meet them. And this level I picked because you kind of get to play as the different characters, and there's actually like a bit of action. But there was like one level where you're sort of at this Clinton party and you're basically just walking around. There's another one where you're in a familiar snowy place doing like just kind of walking around talking to people. Like there's this really weird mix of like insanely boring and mundane gameplay that adds nothing. These weird, awkward open world mission areas that just do not fit into Call of Duty. And then regular traditional levels, but some of these traditional levels are literally like repeated levels of what we played in other games. Going through an airport, or defending an estate, or just, you know, moving through the desert shooting things. And like when I think of a Call of Duty campaign, I think of a linear, action-packed a chaotic, narrative-driven adventure, and Black Ops is supposed to be the crazy mind-melding thing, and it just seems like they're getting more and more satirical. Like, I honestly, at times, I thought the campaign was a bit of a comedy. There was one point, like, when I first kind of fought against this character that had sort of like a health bar, because they have more damage. There's one that was like some kind of Batman villain that sent out like 13, like he was sending them two at a time, but he sent out like 13 RCXDs at me, and I was just shooting them, and I was like, it was comedic, and again, like a lot of it kind of seems satirical. And like somehow there's like this really lengthy zombies integration, and seriously, like you're fighting zombies for like a good chunk of things, and then at one point you're just fighting some character fighting themselves over and over and over again. And it sounds crazy, and it is, but not crazy in the sense where like those original Black Ops games, like Black Ops 1 and 2, where you're like, whoa, what's happening? What's going on? Where is this going? And this one I was just more like, huh? What? Why? Zombies? Why am I fighting zombies? It's just like, it got really weird, where, like I said, it kind of felt like it was almost making fun of itself, or they just sort of like were going a little too quirky. And as I was saying, like some of the missions and stuff, it's just kind of odd because like you're essentially just doing these weird missions that don't feel like Call of Duty. Like it's neat to do something different, I guess. Like that doesn't, I don't mind something different, but it just felt like the story wasn't really focused on, and you were more just doing a bunch of random like spy type things, and I don't know how to describe it. Like usually there's a little bit of a setup in some of the COD missions, and then you're shooting things. But you can go like 20, 30 minutes where there's just no gunplay, nothing happening. You're just sort of like walking around. That's why I kind of picked this level, because it shows some of the mundane elements of not doing much, but there's also a little bit of levity from that, in the sense that this mission does have some action segments, which helps a bit. But some of the levels, you literally just kind of like walk around, and then that's kind of the level and stuff. It's really, really weird. I think if you cut out a lot of the, like, there's some weird puzzle type things too, and kind of like annoying cipher stuff, but like, if you kind of cut the fat from this one, I don't think it's really that long of a kind of campaign. Like, Modern Warfare 3.2 was really bad because the story wasn't very great, and because that it was really short, and it wasn't really well handled, and it felt kind of lazy and derivative. And then you have this one, where it just seems to be borrowing from other Black Ops games for anything that's interesting. And then the other parts of it feel like someone wanted to make a Bond game or a different game entirely. And this is kind of just what we got stuck with that's shoved into Black Ops. And kind of compared to Vanguard, where it's a quirky group of individuals that are breaking all the rules and everything like that. And, you come together as a team, you've all got your different stuff. Like, at least they spend time kind of letting you get to know the characters if you want. In the safe room, you could sit back and have deep emotional conversations, and you can kind of get to know them a bit if you want. And then that's the weird thing too, is your safe room, you're kind of like sort of playing house. You build up a couple different areas, and the game, it makes you weaker than usual. Like, you're more damage prone than usual in Call of Duty, and that's because they want you to have these weird role-playing type things where you're able to like get upgrades for your characters, so you can get more health, more ammo. You're able to, like, I guess you would say, kind of like level up almost, which is weird, or improve yourself and be able to take more damage and do more things. And that was just like weird. And then also just like these weird, I guess you would say, story segments where you are like kind of playing it. It's almost like Skyrim, like the Elder Scrolls. I was kind of joking and making fun of it. I'm like, it's the Elder Scrolls, Call of Duty, and it's kind of weird because like I don't really understand that. Like, there's lock picking, and the character bits. What was that? 968. The character bits, they kind of like will pop up on your screen as if it's an RPG, and you make like choices in how you talk to people, but none of it really matters because none of it really actually like changes anything that's going on, and it's just sort of like really awkward. That was the biggest thing. Like, I was playing the zombie type level thing, and I was just like, it's so weird. I'm not even kidding. Like, straight up zombies, they kind of play to it where it's like probably not, kind of like, you know, psychological stuff. It was weird because I was streaming it, and then the chat people were saying that it like all was a combined shared like narrative thing, but I don't really agree with that. But yeah, it was just kind of weird because like at times it was okay, but a lot of it I was just sitting there with like the most stunned face you could imagine, just sort of being like, why is this like this? It's very, very peculiar, some of the choices that they were making with this, where I'm kind of like, why is COD going in this direction? It's just strange. I'm hoping at some point we can kind of reel the series back in a bit, if that makes sense, and try to do something that's maybe a bit more traditional. Like, I don't mind things evolving. I think it's great that they can... Oh, seriously? Where did that guy come from? I already killed everyone else. Like, I think it's great that Call of Duty is trying new things, but at the same time, it doesn't feel like an evolution that's like a natural improvement. Like, I think we were really getting something good with Modern Warfare 2019. I kind of thought the crafting was sort of stupid for Modern Warfare 2.2. Then Modern Warfare 3.2 was just horrendous. Vanguard was kind of okay, and like... And then Cold War I didn't love, but I think that one had a better structuring and setup than this. It's just strange. Is it really going to make me re-copy the card? You gotta be kidding me. Why would you do this? I already did this. Like, why are you making me redo this? At least the checkpoints and everything are pretty good in this one, I guess you would say. I don't know, it's kind of weird. Like, I hate open world segments in the campaign for COD. I don't want to ever see those continue. I know they're kind of probably set for COD for a while. I don't think they sort of realize that people would hate that system so much. Like, I think most people hate the open world campaign missions. I think they're rubbish. I think they're lazy. I think it's the push of Warzone shoving itself into every part of Call of Duty to try to like save time and pad stuff. And I think that was a big problem with this one, is just like a lot of padding, a lot of like a lack of kind of focus, and like a story like with like a core character that you're just sort of this shell person, which is what you kind of are in COD a lot of the time, but it just didn't really work here, especially when all the other characters are kind of getting fleshed out and everything like that, and you are... I don't know. Like, I didn't mind, I guess you would say, the performances. Like, I thought they were fine, the characters and everything like that in this. I don't really have any problems with, you know, your different options, and they all kind of bring something different to the table, and that's fine. It's just kind of like... a lot of it feels weirdly awkward, and it just doesn't really come together in a very compelling kind of way. I think visually and everything like that, this looked fine. Some of the later levels that get a little bit more mind-altering felt a little lazy, like just assets floating in the air, but I don't know, just for like the amount of, I guess you would say, time, the amount of dev time that went into this, I'm just kind of like wondering where everything sort of went wrong. Because it's not, you know, it's not like the worst, I think. I think it's slightly, it's kind of slightly better than last year's thing, but the bar was so low last year. And I think this one just kind of is better because it's a bit longer. But even the story and stuff like that, I don't, like, a lot of it just kind of feels a little silly and nonsensical. Because I was actually doing, like, laugh out loud laughter during some of the gameplay segments. Whereas I said, like, it felt like a bad comedy at times. And I was just so confused as to, like, what exactly they were trying to do with the story. Like, it felt derivative, but also too samey. And it's just bizarre, because I don't know, like, it really did. It felt like they were trying to shove a different type of game into Call of Duty. And I really want to see them, at some point, get back to something that feels exciting, fun, and well-paced, while still doing something a little fresh with the series. And I just don't know if we're ever gonna get that anytime soon, because it is getting a little... It's getting a little tiring how we're kind of just seeing things that don't really do exciting things with the franchise. I don't know, maybe I'm not the target audience anymore for this game. I have no idea. Maybe some people really like this type of experience. I just hated a lot of it. I was confused by some of it. I was laughing at parts of it because I thought it was so dumb. Some of it was so mundane where I was just sitting there, like, bored out of my mind working through it. And, like, I think the ending portion was a lot better, but, like, even the regular combat scenarios that feel like traditional COD levels felt a lot, like, more linear and tighter than usual. Like, for example, the opening part of the game, you're kind of, like, in this really tight area, and you feel that these are tight environments. Like, Call of Duty, they used to be linear, but they had a great sense of scale to them. Like, you were fighting in trenches, but you could see tons of combat and stuff going on in the backdrop. Whereas this one, you're, like, in a trench, and you can't really see anything that's going on. Or, like, different levels, too, were very tight and very linear. And then you get these weirdly, like, this massive desert map where you're driving around a car for some reason. And it was just, like, completely illogical, and it didn't really fit into anything that was going on, and I don't know, there's something off with this Call of Duty campaign. There's something really genuinely off about it. As I said, though, like, some of it is fine, some of it is awful. I'd say kind of overall it's just not great. I don't think it'll be a very memorable entry in the Call of Duty franchise. I'm assuming other people are going to find a lot of it really silly, like the zombies key card thing I thought was just stupid. Like, it didn't even look like it was part of Call of Duty, and, like, if you want to go to that sort of a world or a design, I feel like you have to kind of take it in a different direction. Like, it just doesn't really... Like, it was tonal whiplash was a lot of this game. Like, sometimes it's like, oh, okay, this makes sense. And then other times you're sitting there being like, why is this happening? How is this happening? I don't know. It was kind of bizarre. And then there's the weird RPG elements. And it just, like, feels like this weird mismatched... Like, it was lacking direction. Like a directionless ship kind of just steering back and forth. And, you know, having the biggest budget to do the craziest things. And then, like, the campaign to me kind of just, like, flopping in a weird way. And then they're always, like, teasing things. And I'm just sort of like, what are you kind of teasing? And I don't know, I feel like I used to be more connected with these COD campaigns. And this one feels like another miss for me, which is such a shame because I did have higher hopes for them to put together a compelling and full package for Black Ops 6. And so far the campaign for me has been a major letdown, but hopefully the rest of the package is good, and as I said, I'll be following up with a full scaled review in the very, very near future, with all of the different parts of the game chatted about as I do every year.